Hi everyone, here's the video overview for Monday, March 23rd. We'll be doing the math homework sheet 38. On Mondays, we typically do a spelling activity. It's usually a word sort. Today, we're going to do something called a word matrix, which the kids have done once before. In reading workshop, our focus switches from the literary device of foreshadowing to repetition. In writing workshop, we start drafting today. This is our drafting week, and the kids are welcome to go through the weekend if they want to, because I'm really hoping they get excited about this project. And since they're likely to have more time than they usually do, they can really put their heart and soul into making something great that they will be proud of. And Mondays, we often have a chance in the afternoon to do a little coding. So once the kids are done with today's 4 activities, they are more than welcome to go to code.org and continue their coding work. Here's our warm-up for the math. So go ahead and pause as the kids work on it. Now, once they are done, if they did a tape diagram, I'm not sure if they would, but here's what it would look like. 8 groups of 1 3/4. And then numerically, they most likely use the distributive property that we did on Friday. As I mentioned, many kids like using the arrows to help them remember what to do. So we do the 8 times the 1 to equal 8. 8 times 3/4 is 24 quarters, which is 6. We put it together. The team ran 14 kilometers. Today's lesson builds on what we did last Friday. There's really not that much new. It mostly reviews and reinforces what we did on Friday to give the kids a second experience. One thing that the kids will be asked to do on their homework sheet is fill in the blanks to show that they understand which numbers get multiplied when using the distributive property. And once they do that, it would look like that, multiplying the 5 times the 8 and the 5 times 1/5. Here's the next example in the lesson. Now, when the kids do it, if they were asked to do a tape diagram, there are 2 ways of doing it, as I showed on Friday. One is simply to do 9 3/4 side by side from left to right, as you see in the top row. By rearranging and putting all the 9s together and putting all the 3/4 together, it lends itself well to the distributive property. So the kids know that they're multiplying 9 4 times, 3/4 4 times, and then step by step. They get 36 12/4, which they turn into 36 plus 3 for an answer of 39. The answer key is the next slide, so go ahead and pause as the kids work on that. One thing I want to point out is on some of the questions, you'll notice in 2B, for example, the order of the numbers is switched, but the process is the same. So I don't want the kids to freak out at all if they see the 9 to the right of the 7 3/4. The steps are still the same. We're still multiplying the whole number by the whole number first, and then by the fraction second. Or the order really doesn't matter. They're just multiplying the 9 by each number separately. It doesn't change if the numbers are presented to them in a different order. The next slide is going to be an example of the word matrix that we'll be doing. This is what I showed the kids last time. Hopefully the kids have fun with this. This is meant to be a relaxing activity and almost like a game where they're given a word. In the example, it's the word take. It goes in a circle. And then on the left, the goal is to come up with as many prefixes as possible that can be combined with the word in the circle to make as many new words as possible. Same thing on the right. We list as many suffixes as we can that could be combined with the word in the circle. The definition is right underneath the circle. And then below, it almost looks like a math equation where something plus something equals something. So the kids actually show how they take the word in the circle, add either the prefix or the suffix, or sometimes both, to make new words. Today, the kids are going to use the word cook. So on a separate sheet of paper, they can simply draw a sheet that looks like this. They can put a circle at the top, put the word cook in the circle, and then on the left, they will list prefixes that they can put in front of cook. On the suffixes, they can put on the right. Does not have to be anything fancy. Even just adding an S or an ing could lead to a lot of new words, especially when you put a prefix and suffix together with the word cook. They don't need to worry about the definition. They can write it if they want to. For today, it's fine if they just go right to the form changes at the bottom. The goal is to come up with at least 10 words that they can make out of the word cook. And that's something that you can go over with them. There's really no answer key or any formal assessment of that one. The next slide is reading workshop. And today, as the kids are reading, I asked them to Analyze what they're reading for any examples of repetition. That's when the author repeats something on purpose. I've said to the kids before that if they're noticing the same word, phrase, or object, it's not because the authors are lazy and can't think of other words. It's almost always done for a specific purpose. Many times it's done to help develop the theme or main idea or main message of the story. So we want to be on the lookout for examples of repetition so that the kids understand when they see it, there's probably something important happening. And also over the last few days, we've been talking about the reading workshop, writing workshop connection. If the kids feel comfortable and want to try building examples of repetition into their new fiction story, that would be fantastic. There's one book called Fly Away Home, and in it the author repeats the word blue. Blue is used to describe various articles of clothing, and it turns out that after seeing the word blue over and over again, the kids realize that the author is using that to describe the mood of sadness that's happening. So the blue means more than just the color, it's the emotion as well. So again, we want to encourage the kids to be on the lookout for any examples of repetition in their web reading today. Now, our main event today is starting our fiction, story, and writing workshop. If the kids want to or need to finish any planning that they started last Friday, they are more than welcome to do that. We have the whole week to draft, and I encourage the kids to plan accordingly. In the past, I've worked with students who had grand plans of 10 chapters, and if they're doing one per day for the first 4 days of the week, they leave themselves 6 on the last day, and that's just it's not realistic, and it's going to lead to a lot of stress and generally a lot of shortcuts and corners cut at the end of the week. So please sit with your child and make a little plan. Of course, it could change throughout the week, but we can get a rough sense of how many chapters they're thinking of having, dividing it up throughout the week. Weekend is fine as well. We are going to start revising next Monday. So as long as they're keeping up with that, they're going to be fine, and time will not be a factor. They already have a Google Doc with their crafting fiction prep. I'm asking them to come up with to create another one today with their name '*s crafting fiction. That way they can go back and forth between the two files anytime they need to look back at their story arc, their internal, external chart, all of the prep work they did last week. I don't want it to be forgotten. I want to be sure that they're looking back so that they can have access to it and they're using that information as they build their story from beginning to end. I also mentioned that in typical years, we have an index card on our desk with the theme and story idea. Now, the kids don't have that in front of them. They have it in their prep doc. So if you want to write it out on a piece of paper or print out their prep doc, that is fine, so that they can have easy access to the important ideas that they established last week. When they draft, it is so important that they consistently think of their theme, because the theme influences their decisions about pretty much everything. The character and how they describe the characters, the setting, how they describe the setting, the words they use, any devices they might use. I've had situations in the past where I've met with students after they've published their stories and I've read it and scored it, and I sit with them and I say to them that their story was really nicely written. However, it was very difficult to find any evidence of a theme, and then they have a very bashful look on their face as if to say, oh, I forgot about the theme. And my point was that they just can't forget to do that. It's not an add-on. It's not something that they remember to tack on at the beginning and forget about it or tack on at the end. It's got to be the driving force of the story from beginning to end. So as you talk with your child throughout the week, please feel free to read through the story with them. Don't do any editing or revising with them, but feel free to talk with them about the theme and how they are bringing the theme to life so it's clear when people read it. One thing that we talked about in the fall, and I think the kids are going to do a better job this time around, is to include what we call a balance of ingredients in their story. Many times young writers have all action or all dialogue. We want a balance. We want there to be information about the setting and character. We want there to be action. We want there to be dialogue. And the other ones that you see in the bullet points. When the kids do chapters, there are two common issues that kids of this age often have. One is not having a balance of these ingredients, and I'm noticing here that character description is not included on this list, and it should be. The strong emotion really isn't an ingredient. It's action, setting, internal thinking, dialogue, and character description. So one issue is that the kids tend to be too heavy with one or more, but not heavy enough with the others. So we want a balance of the ingredients. The other issue that happens is that the chapters tend to be very short, maybe just a few lines, rather than understanding that a chapter needs to be a focused piece of writing around one event. So if the kids are putting in a balance of ingredients and it's focused on one focused event, then they're going to do just fine. If you've been in the class recently, you've seen this chart on the wall by the fans. I take pride in thinking that this is one of the best pieces of writing that I've done. It's the story of a young boy and his love of the chicken noodle soup that they have at Soup Plantation on San Vicente and Brentwood. And the reason the different color cards are being used is to show the kids how the different ingredients fit together to make a complete story. So each color stands for a different ingredient: red for action, blue for character description, etc. So it's something I did many years ago where I put each ingredient on a card, put the cards together. They can be placed in any order. But the idea is that the kids see how the different ingredients come together. So if this is something you want to have on the screen as they're writing so they can have access to it, or something you want to talk with them about to encourage a balance of ingredients, you can go ahead and do that. Thanks.